Howdy, folks. Today we shall talk about the Tanchjim origin. This is actually a set I wanted to listen to for a long time, so thank you, Paul Wasabi, for sending me these. This is basically the oxygen, fast forward, whatever it is, 4 or 5 years now. So their latest generation dynamic driver. This is a one dynamic driver set. We got a little back vent there. So I'm going to complain about a few things, and there's some good parts. The shell nozzle length is longer than, not larger, but longer than the oxygens were. So this is good. Oxygen was a little bit hard for some folks to actually fit. They rounded and ergonomic out the shell a little bit more, so that's good. What I consider bad, though, is this is using some really heavy-ass stainless steel now. So they're more like a moondrop in the weight levels. Not too big, but I really like lighter IEMs. But fit and finish is quite nice on them. Like I said, just quite heavy. And so they're basically the oxygen. Fast forward a bunch of years with some newer technology, driver stuff going on. They call it the DMT5, whatever that is. I guess DMT1 may have been oxygen or 2 or something. I think actually over the years they changed the driver as they refined it, or that's pretty much my suspicion, because oxygens from the past could be slightly different. Anyways, I'll just state right away that this is, in fact, I would call it actually a refined oxygen in a lot of senses. Not exactly the same, mostly because the bass is a bit less on these, which gives you psychoacoustically a better chance of hearing the uppers on the driver, which has a lot of finesse and has a very, very high-end styled sound coming out of them. So tons of extension, micro details, refinement. These are up there as far as dynamic drivers get. Never mind the tuning. I think the quality of the driver is actually, it's up there with the best of the best, quite honestly. So that's cool. Weight, just they could be lighter. But again, they fit well. So let me flip over to the desktop. I'll just talk a little bit about these because of the fact that I consider them basically like an oxygen, and they are in a lot of senses. Then a lot of the review is going to flow from that. So let's flip over. Right over here we have Paul Wasabi's graph on the oxygen versus the origin. So you could see on the origin we have a little tiny bit more like actual mids right in this area, from like 600 to say whatever, the 150 hertz. Then we have less sub bass by enough to actually matter, I would say. So let me see, sub bass on the origin 64 and on the oxygen, so it's about 4.5 decibels less of subs on the origin, which is thereby going to let you hear more of this area on origin. So the treble areas, I think, are going to be easier to perceive, and I think the driver is a little bit higher quality than the original oxygens. We can see a little more energy above 10,000 hertz. Peak shift around because of the shell changes, but basically I consider this to be like as if the oxygen had a slightly higher quality driver, and part of that is because lower subs, and part of that is because the driver, I think, is actually just higher quality. It's got more extension. If you look over towards, sorry, I gotta get this stuff out of the way, towards 20,000 hertz, we do in fact have a lot more energy on the origin driver. So I don't know, they probably spritzed it with some different unicorn cum or something, whatever. So it also has a little bit more mids, a little bit less ear gain area than the oxygen did, which is, I think, a good move. I would have really loved if they had some type of system where you could just increase the subs on the origin back up to the point where the oxygen was, whether it's like a plug or, some magnetic thing, like a couple other sets have done. That would be just absolutely sublime. But as far as everything else, staging on this is going to be above the original oxygen, so super good. We'll give it a probably, I would say, a strong 8.5 to 9 out of 10 in staging. The wideness especially. 3D factor is going to be really good, although it's a little bit less deep than the original oxygen because of the less subs over here. X factor is definitely the finesse, and the extension of this dynamic driver is phenomenal. It's really nice, and it'll tickle your like your nerve endings in the back of your neck, or at least it did for me in a lot of tracks. So it's super nice, very airy sounding. And again, the little bit of extra mids really pulled it off for me super well on this set. I would say that the balance on the Origin is slightly tilted to the uppers, whereas the Oxygen, it was a little more balanced. But it is what it is. So it does have replaceable, removable nozzle filters. I kind of just chose the one that I felt had the best balance, and the rest of them were like they were so close that it was really hard to hear if there's any difference, to be honest with you. So I don't even know why they're in there, but whatever. So I didn't really write up a lot of stuff, but this is pretty much a high recommendation. I think the price is about maybe $240. It's probably gone up by now. But it is worth it. And so if you're a person that is fart sniffing, refined dynamic driver lover, this is going to be your driver. And it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal in all aspects, really. Except for, like I said, subs. Not quite as bombastic and deep as I maybe would prefer, but I'd have to actually try it to know for sure if that was an important part of the tuning that you could change and would not kill the upper air mojo stuff. So you could also see, by the way, just that the original Oxygen was probably closer to Harman, and the Origin is not quite as close. We'll just say that it's got more mid bass and everything else. So yeah. Definitely a high rec for these. I wish they were a little lighter, and I wish I could change the subs on them a little bit. You could, in theory, let's see. Sorry, I'm looking for. Yeah. Little pinhole vents. So you could probably mess with the subs on this by sticking something to the shell. So something you could try, but it almost assuredly is going to change the stage mojo and the amount of extra hairy air air that you hear in the treble frequencies and the refinement. So I'm sure they did a lot of work to get this the way they wanted it. Anyway, high recommendation from the Short Bus, and I'll talk to you on the next one.